I present my apologies for not being present with you in person due to recent illness. But via this video, my colleagues and I are honored to be able to address this important conference on behalf of the World Council of Churches in this session on experiences of peace building in Latin America and worldwide. Founded in the aftermath of the Second World War, the WCC's perspectives and commitments were marked by the horrific impacts of that conflict. Recognizing that war is both a cause and a consequence of the denial and gross violation of human rights, the WCC immediately engaged in contributing to the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, among other formative processes of the United Nations. WCC also made an early commitment to nuclear disarmament, a commitment that it has maintained to this day and which, sadly, is more necessary today than ever. I take this opportunity to invite all participants in this conference to join us in collective efforts for the universalization of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in order to eliminate the most indiscriminately destructive weapons ever created by human beings. Fundamentally, the task of peace building is about engaging in dialogue to resolve disputes, promoting reconciliation, and confronting injustices and the violation of human rights. Some of the WCC's most important engagements in this regard were in the Latin American region since the 1970s. Through the WCC's Latin American Human Rights Resource Office, led by Chuck Harper, the WCC supported and accompanied churches and human rights movements in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay. The churches helped to find ways to overcome the information blockade imposed by military authorities, giving international visibility to what was happening in many countries in Latin America, and denouncing the military repression in international forums. The lessons learned during that time continue to inform our approach to the struggles of today against religious intolerance, violence against women and children, racism, xenophobia, discrimination against minorities, poverty, and socio-economic injustice in the region. And today, we are proud to have been invited to join the round table of dialogue between the National Government of Colombia and the National Liberation Army, the ELN. We look forward to contributing to the positive developments for a sustainable peace in that context.
Beyond the Latin American region, WCC is engaged in efforts for peace in many contexts, including on the Korean Peninsula, in Ethiopia, South Sudan, Nigeria, West Papua, the Middle East, and in the context of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Invariably, our peace-building work is with and through our member churches in those contexts, and very often with interfaith partners as well. In my own region, the Middle East, we work closely, for example, with representatives of all the religious and ethnic components of Iraq to promote reforms to the educational curricula in order to build awareness and respect among Iraqi young people for the rich religious diversity of the country after the upheavals and atrocities of the so-called Islamic State. In Iraq and elsewhere, we seek inclusion and equal citizenship rights for all, without discrimination on the basis of religion or ethnicity, and an end to military occupations such as that in the occupied Palestinian territories that deny such rights and protections to the occupied people. In all cases, we advocate for dialogue, mutual understanding, cooperation and justice as the only path towards sustainable peace, and we deplore the resort to armed violence as a means of resolving disputes.
The WCC's 11th Assembly, held last year in Karlsruhe in Germany, met against the background of the war in Ukraine, but also so many other places around the world suffering the effects of conflict and tensions. Issues of war and peace and the Christian calling to be peacemakers were naturally very prominent in the discussions at the Assembly. We understand that making peace involves addressing racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, hate speech, and all other forms of hatred of the other, all of which have increased and intensified in the recent years, in large part encouraged by populist, nationalist movements, competition for essential resources for life, economic injustice and inequality in the marketplace, intra- and interstate conflicts, and the specter of nuclear war. As the Assembly proclaimed, these threats to peace fundamentally violate the core tenets of Christian faith. The calling to dialogue, encounter, and pursuit of mutual understanding is the very essence of ecumenism and central to peacemaking. It is the role of churches to embody Christ's love that moves the world to reconciliation and unity. Indeed, war is incompatible with God's very nature and the will for humanity, and against our fundamental Christian and ecumenical principles. The Assembly rejected the polarization and division of human community and declared our commitment to grapple with the threats and challenges to peace, justice, human security, and environmental sustainability through dialogue, encounter, the pursuit of mutual understanding and cooperation, rather than through exclusion and confrontation. We called for global ceasefire as an urgent moral imperative in all armed conflicts around the world, and for parties to such conflicts to engage and persist in dialogue and negotiations until just and sustainable peace can be achieved, and to abstain from war. Hearing the groans from so many conflict-affected communities around the world, these are some of the core commitments that we as a global fellowship of churches have made, and that together with our ecumenical, interfaith, and civil society partners, we are determined to pursue.